Greetings. I'm going to sing a song that you no doubt already know the melody to, and that's the state of the world, which is serious division. Very strange time, and everyone knows that throughout history we've had plenty of strange times, right? So why is this time any more strange than times of the past? And I would say that technology changes that, because it speeds this strangeness up way faster than we're even capable of grasping onto. Politics have a great hold on everyone right now, both sides. And let me just be clear about that really quick. Either side, there's no savior on either side of that spectrum. Now, you could really differentiate and try to get down to who's less evil than the other, but there are no saviors on that either side of the political spectrum. There are false idols, but we're worshiping false idols at the moment, and we're focused on things that are, I would say, not that important considering the many things that we should focus on. So what are we focused on? We're focused on transgenderism. We're focused on race. Why? And you have to think about, why are we so focused on these things? Why are we fighting about these things? Because I would say on the hierarchy of values, they're low, right? Like, if you want to be focused on something for the 21st century, I would say cancer and AI will be the things to focus on, like the real things to be concerned about or worried about. Because those are the things that seem to plague us the most, particularly cancer. It's like, obviously, this is an archetypal battle that we're in. It's not a political battle that we're in. That's just like the surface level. You want to talk surface level, then it's a political battle, but it's really an archetypal battle that we're in, which technology has accelerated this archetypal battle. But in that archetypal battle, there's a heaven and hell dynamic. And when I think of cancer, I think of hell. So if you don't think hell exists, which is a real problem, because there are people that think hell just doesn't even exist. It's a fairy tale or something like that. It's very much a psychological place as much as it is a geographical place. So if I was to walk you down a cancer ward, particularly a children's cancer ward, you would see people in hell. There are people in hell, and you think that they give a fuck about politics, these people? I don't think so, because the people in the cancer ward, here in Delaware, it's the Helen Graham Center, which when I drive by the Helen Graham Center cancer ward building here in Delaware, I can't even look at it, because I can't. It's like some sort of portal into hell. Like, I'm afraid I'm going to get drawn into it. That's how frightened I am of hell and cancer. But the people in the cancer ward, Helen Graham Center here in Delaware, any cancer ward for that matter, are not focused on transgenderism or racism and the right and the left, any political dynamic. That's not even part of their consciousness, because those people have an elevated consciousness, because they're at the brink of what this is really about. They are facing their own mortality. So think about that when you're getting into these entanglements with people and fighting about the left and the right and all this crap. It's like, you could be fighting for your life. You could be in hell. And that's worth knowing. That's worth thinking about, man, because it gets your priorities straight. Or maybe it won't even be you. Maybe it'll be your child. Or maybe your mother. Right? And so when you start to dig down deep into reality of what's really real, it's like transgenderism and racism they're real, but they're at the bottom of the hierarchy of what's real, and what's important and what matters. And that's the big difference between a scientific mind and the religious mind. Is, the scientific mind tells you what matter is, but religion tells you what matters. So it's worth thinking about the things that we're arguing about and concerned about. Something like cancer is something I think we should be more concerned about. It's like, it's easy to be on the sidelines and complain about, political subject matter. You can make a post about it. If you're more ambitious, you could go to a protest about something, but then that's kind of where you stop, right? Like, no one's really, really trying to solve any of these problems. Like the climate change problem, it's like, that's the problem out of all of our problems that we chose to care about. It's like we have 1 billion problems. Why that one? Why did we choose that one? And I think it's because that's the one that makes everyone feel good, right? Because it makes you feel like you're saving the planet, you're going to save the earth. But like, complaining about it, arguing about it, going to a protest and making signs about it is basically where everyone runs out. Like, no one's really trying to come up with a solution for climate change. You would have to spend literally the rest of your life, you'd have to narrow yourself so small that for the rest of your life, all you did was concentrate on solving the climate change problem, which could turn out to be useless, right? So it's like, no one cares about climate change that much to narrow themselves down to nothing almost and concentrate on it until they die, right? They care about it enough to make posts about it, to argue about it, and maybe show up at a protest about it. And that's kind of it, which that solves nothing. Like, that doesn't do anything. People like to fucking argue, right? Like I'm a human, right? Like, sometimes I like to argue. I see posts, they annoy me, so I make a counter post. And I know what I'm doing when I do that. It's like, I want to argue because I'm like, man, like, what is this bullshit about? Do I like arguing all the time? No. And maybe they don't either, because we're all human. We all are interconnected as humans, right? So I'm not trying to throw stones at them and claim I'm like morally superior, because I just admitted to you that sometimes, I like to argue with these people because I see what they write, I see what they post, it frustrates me, it annoys me, and I want to argue. And then I sit back and think, like, when I brought up cancer, it's like, why am I arguing with these people? Like, I could be fighting for my life in a cancer ward. Or maybe I could be watching my son fight for his, or my daughter. And then transgenderism becomes like a joke, and climate change becomes a joke too, which is probably an insoluble problem. And maybe cancer is too. But it's strange how we prioritize certain problems to care about. And the way things are going, with the technology being so advanced, and it just keeps becoming like incredibly advanced, like by the second. This archetypal battle is accelerated. The battle between good and evil is accelerated, and that's what makes this time in history different than the past issues that we've had in history regarding this archetypal battle, because it's been going on forever. But now it's like seriously accelerated, and AI are going to become a big part of that. No one knows what that is. No one knows what that is. Like, if you think AI is typing prompts into a dialogue box and getting something generates like a picture or a poem or a song, a piece of music, whatever, like, yeah, that's AI, but that's like a very small fraction of what AI is capable of and is going to be doing to society. And people right now, whether they know it or not, they don't know it, are possessed right now by a spirit. It's an invisible, it's in psychoanalytical terms, it would be a complex. But no matter what you want to call it, it's a spirit that possesses people, it takes them over. and they don't know it, because we're all moved, we're pushed and pulled and directed by our unconscious. So we don't know it. Like, we think we're in control, but we're not. It's like your unconscious mind, the things you're interested in, you don't pick. You think you pick those things, but it's your unconscious that picks those things. And I've said this on videos before, so if you've ever watched any of my videos, it's probably a broken record, but if you walk down an aisle in a library, there's certain books that are going to jump off the shelf at you. It's like, you think you pick those books that you're interested in? You know, it's like your unconscious mind picks those things. So we're in a place where people are sacrificing their higher order self to their sexual preference or their sexual being. So it's like they're possessed by a god or goddess of sex that, like, so is that really you? Is that how you define yourself? By your sex? Is it wise to sacrifice your higher order self for your sex? I mean, you know, and again, it's like, I'm just saying, like, people don't realize that. Like, they don't understand. If you don't, and the only reason why I understand some of this is because I got really into Carl Jung. I started to read his books, and I got turned on him from Peterson. But it's like, if you don't realize that, if you don't realize the power of the unconscious mind, it's like, you think it's you. You don't think there's this thing in you that's controlling you and making these moves. You know, so it's like, until you understand that, then you'll watch yourself differently, and you'll think about your moves and why you're doing them and what it means. So these people, they're just possessed and they don't know it. And it's sad, because what happens is that possession, it goes from being to being to being. And when you put all those beings together, they become linked. And it's scary when you get a bunch of possessed ideologues together that become linked. Like, it's like dangerous, because then it's like the spirit has taken over the whole group as a collective. So the collective unconscious is like possessed right now by the spirit, and it's moving them and directing them, and they don't know it. They think it's them. But I'm just trying to make light of what I think about, and think, like, there's so much division. It's accelerated. It's going to get worse. It's definitely going to get worse. I mean, we're at the tip of the iceberg right now. It's not great. And I think about, are people really taking stock in, like, what this game is about? Like, what is it about? Well, it's about, you're born, you age, you get sick, and then you die. So anything outside of that is less important than that. Because again, it's like, when you end up, if you end up, or your children ended up in the cancer ward, you wouldn't give a fuck about this political nonsense. You wouldn't be arguing about transgenderism online. Like, there's just no way. Because that just falls away into the land of unimportant, trivial bullshit. So it's like something worth thinking about when people are so possessed that they're caught up in these arguments. And I find myself, as I stated earlier, my shadow will come out. You know, that Jungian shadow will rise to the surface, and I want to argue. I want to argue against people and their ideologies, and try to hit it from a different angle, because I think I know more than they do, and that's whatever. But when it comes down to it, all that shit doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything when it comes to the end. It's like, we talk about oppression. It's like people that are oppressed and this, that. It's like, we're all oppressed. We're all oppressed. So why are we all oppressed? Well, we're in the material world. Like, the material world is a place where it's the baseline conditions for existence in the material world is suffering itself. So you can see, and you can talk to anyone, someone that's driving a $150,000 SUV, and they get out with nice clothes on, and somewhere in your mind, like, you think that they got it made, but it won't. Talk to them for a half hour, an hour. They're oppressed. They got something going on in their life, and if it's not them, it's someone very close to them. We're all dealt that hand just by being in this worldly place, this earthly place. And people have become very worldly. People are materialists. I mean, nearly everyone I talk to is a materialist. Like, spirituality is dead, and the people that think they are spiritual, I question that. Because I've been fighting the spirituality battle, and it's ripped me in pieces, man. Like, just trying to come to grips with what it is, how to live differently, how to be ethical as much as humanly possible is very difficult. That's the price you pay, even for the Christian price, let's say, is the cross. It's like, do you want that? You got a price you're willing to pay, and you want to call yourself a Christian? Like, are you a real Christian? I ask myself that all the time. Like, am I a real Christian, or am I just talking shit? You know, am I really? Do I have what it takes to carry the cross of this horrific material, worldly, earthly place and face it head on and voluntarily? You know, the way Christ did, like, he voluntarily and radically embraced the horrors of the world. And that's what it means to be a Christian. It's like the highest demand that could be put on anyone. It's like, am I a real Christian? There's only one real Christian, and that's Christ. Everyone else, that are Christian, we're trying to step toward that all the time. And is it possible for any of us to get there? Who knows? I don't know. But even in the trying, at least we're trying, you know. So when I hear people say, like, that they're spiritual, like, I think, like, well, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Because if you're going through what I'm going through, it's not like, oh, I'm spiritual, and that means I'm filled with the spirit of inspiration and love, and I'm connected to something beyond this material world, and I feel great, and I'm super ethereal, and I'm floating around. Like, that's not, in my experience, what becoming spiritual has been. It's been a fight and a battle, and it's hurt, and it's been painful, and it's just been, it rips me apart all the time, because I think about it all the time. It's playing in like a movie background, playing in my head. You know, it's like everything that happens, we're just faced with ethical decisions, like one right after the other. And it's like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing today? Whatever that is. If it's being faced with telling a lie by omission or a lie by commission, or am I taking care of myself today? You know, what did I eat this morning? Oh man, well, I ate this. Gosh, man, I was not doing the right thing. You know, because God is within us, right? He's within and without. I'm not sure who said this, but they said God is a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. So he's inside of us, and he directs us. And it's like, you either listen or you don't. It's like, every day I'm like, did I listen? Am I listening? Did I pray today? Well, no, I didn't. I haven't prayed in 2 days, so man, I'm not really. And then, you know, people question, like, they make fun of, like, if someone makes a post online, right? Because we're living online, like, we're all watching each other online all the time. And if someone makes a post that says, you know, my father's sick, give me your thoughts and prayers. And then you'll see people say, you know, well, thoughts and prayers aren't going to do anything. You know, it's like, well, maybe you don't know what prayer is, you know, because thought is secularized prayer. So when you pray, you're having that inward dialogue, and you're asking yourself the questions, like, and when you ask yourself the hard questions through prayer, the revelation comes, and that's the only way to get it. Because if you don't think about it or pray about it, like I said, thought is secularized prayer, then you don't get the revelation. So it's like, prayer is like, it's incredibly important. Like, how can you, there's just so much that I feel like people don't take into account with these things, you know. It's like, I feel like in the West, we're spoiled. You know, like we grow up, a lot of us, you know, because the Bible is the book of the West. Whether you like it or not, you can say I don't believe, you can say it's fake, you can say all those things, but it doesn't matter what you say. The West was founded on that book, and it's in everyone's lives, and it's had tremendous reach. Like, you know, temples have fallen and into ruins, but that book has lasted. It lasts forever. It's still here. It's not as popular as it was 30 years ago, and it's diminishing in popularity, but it's still here. So most of us in the West have grown with that book, with those principles. And now it's like we have an issue with those principles. Why? Because we don't have any issues. In the West, we don't have anything really to complain or cry about for the most part. Now, that can be argued, like everything can be argued. I'm saying for the most part, if you live in the US, I mean, you got it pretty good. And that's probably part of the problem, you know. But again, you know, just going back on some of the themes here, it's like, you know, don't be thinking that like you're the only one who's oppressed. Like we all are, and some are more oppressed than others, right? Because life's random. Like here's a set of cards, you get dealt a set of cards, and you play the best hand that you can with those cards. But in every hand that's dealt to every human being, suffering, the card of suffering's in that hand. So there's no escaping that. So again, man, don't be fooled in thinking that this is a political issue and it's a political argument. It's not. It's a battle of good and evil is what this is that's the game that we're playing. And it's accelerated by technology, and it's going to get worse, because once AI really hits, like once AI, the giants will be here. And you know, there's already been proof of them becoming sentient on their own. And who's programming these giants? Well, we are. So you have to say, well, we're not saints, you know, like, because that's what it really takes to change the world, right? You have to become a saint, right? That's the real only catalyst for change, is to transform yourself into a saint, which isn't likely for any of us. Even though as Christians, we're trying to do that, the ones that are, you know, genuine. But man, it's I don't want to say it's impossible, but I can't think of anything harder to do to pull off that kind of religious transformation. But anyway, just know that, like, all of these things that keep popping up that are causing crazy division, like, don't be fooled and think that, like, this one person's on the side of the good, this one's on the side of the good. And, you know, it's like, if you need to speak your truth, you know, when it comes to these things, like the whole transgender thing, because it's a huge thing right now. It's like, if you don't think it's right for males and females to compete against each other in certain domains, then you got to speak that up. You got to speak that out, because it's not going to change if you don't. Because particularly the radical left, like, they push and 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 they push this much and 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 this much, and then you turn around and they've gotten that far, and they make you afraid to speak out, like, because the way it's set up is like, if you speak out, then you're a villain and you're transphobic and this and that and the third. It's like, no, I'm not transphobic. I just don't think a man should be in competition with a woman on whatever discipline it is, if it's, you know, ultimately going to fall in the man's favor. Like, that's not fair to the women. Like we claim about, the claim is like inclusivity for all, but like, and you know, they try to champion women in this weird way, but like, are you really championing women if you're adding a male in their competition? It's like, that's no way to stick up for the divine feminine. Like, you're just hurting women. So their ideology is like, there's no cohesion to it, but that doesn't matter, you know. And again, it's like, I use the word possession a lot because I think that's that's what it is. People don't realize, that they're possessed and their sexuality has become paramount. And the higher order self is out the window because they are. And Freud talked about this. These aren't my ideas. These are things that I've learned in the past 7 years when I started to really try to become religious. I went down that Jungian psychology road to get to it because the Christian fundamentalists, I knew there's something important, but I wasn't getting what I needed from them, and I kind of found it through the Jungian road. So anyway, just putting some things to think about out there, and I'll just end it with this. It's like when you're thinking if you're, let's say I'm not picking on this group. I know it's going to come off that way, but if you're on the left and you're making posts constantly about transgenderism and saying people are transphobic because of these sports and at least evaluate where that is on the hierarchy of values for you, and just realize that life and death are the alpha omega of this game, and one day that's where you're going to be. And do you want to spend your life focused on the wrong things? Because I can tell you, again, I'm just using the cancer ward because that one sticks out for me. That one really scares me. Those people are not fighting about transgenderism or any other, or racism or any other ideology that you could think of. They're fighting for their lives. Their consciousness is elevated way higher than yours because the stakes are way high. They are the epitome of life. That when you're facing your mortality, just something to think about. And think about where you fall when you're fighting for whatever you're fighting for. Because to make a post about it or to show up at a protest about it, if that's all you're doing, then you have to question how real you are about what you're fighting for. Because if you're not really trying to find a real solution, and your solutions are using your intellect to argue, that's not a real solution. That doesn't solve the problem. You're just kind of showing off maybe your intelligence of what you know about that or how you feel about that, and trying to find loopholes and ways to argue gotcha moments for other people. But that's not really solving anything. Anyway, rant over. Happy Sunday.